So let's say you're an entry-level rider and you want something fun and approachable that you can ride on the street. There are two really good options out on the market right now. You have this Kawasaki ZX4RR, a screaming high RPM machine that will provide many smiles for miles. But there's also the venerable Yamaha R7. It's been around for a couple years and it still makes a really great case for itself for that kind of entry-level beginner plus category for someone who's really going to enjoy a street sport machine. Today we're going to compare and contrast the ZX4RR and the Yamaha R7 to see which one you should get. Alright folks, for today's video we're going to cover the specs on both of these machines. I'm going to take the R7 out for a spin and see if I still love it as much as I did back in 2021. Then I'm going to bring it back here in the shop and I'm going to render a final verdict on which of these two machines you should buy. But before we get into it, I've got a special promo going on right now. We've got a special going on right now with this Yamaha R6. You guys have seen this is our modern classic giveaway, but if you head over to yamanoob.co and sign up as a new member for the all giveaways subscription, you will get access to the maximum entries for the month to win this thing. So if you want to win a piece of history, this amazing 2008 Yamaha R6, head over to yamanoob.co, become a new member, and get maximum entries for the month. Don't miss it. Now let's get back to that ZX4 and R7. All right, spec sheet warriors, let's get into it. So the price for the ZX4RR is a crisp $9,699 MSRP. You're probably gonna be paying closer to $11,500, $12,000, maybe even a little bit more depending on the market you live, because these are a pretty hot commodity. Whereas the R7 comes in at $8,999, pretty much $9,000 MSRP. You're probably gonna look at about $10,500, $11,000-ish out the door for this machine, so they're actually priced pretty close. Now, once we start looking at their engines is where we're going to see a big difference. The ZX4RR is powered by a 399cc inline-4 machine, very unique. There is no other motorcycle currently out on the market with this specific type of engine in that size. It's a very small little inline-4, making 50 horsepower without an ECU flash, 75 horsepower with the ECU flash, as we have famously documented already, making 26 foot-pounds of torque at 11,000 RPM with a peak RPM of 16,000 RPM on this machine. That is super cool. You don't see that in this category. Now, the R7 features a parallel twin with a 270-degree crank at 689 cc's, making 72 horsepower and 50 foot-pounds of torque at 6,500 RPM with a maximum of 10,200 RPMs. Now, that's going to tell you the whole story right there. The R7 has usable, accessible power throughout its whole rev range in a linear fashion. If you look at the R7's dyno graph, it looks almost perfect, where the horsepower is just an X equals Y, and then the torque is just one big flat plateau. Whereas the ZX4 makes more traditional super sport style power. It builds and builds and builds and then crests all the way up at the top. So you really got to search for the power on this thing, which gives it a bit of an exciting feel to ride. But the R7 has that usable, tractable, luggable engine that we love in the MT-07 so much. Now, in terms of weight, if you can believe it, both these bikes are almost identical in weight. 414 pounds for the ZX4RR and 415 pounds for the Yamaha R7, which I actually didn't realize until I did the spec sheet breakdown. That's pretty cool. Now, seat height's going to be a little different as well. That's important for beginner riders when you're getting your foot down on the ground. The ZX4RR features a 31.5-inch seat height, while the R7 has a 32.9-inch seat height. In terms of ergonomics, the ZX4 is much closer to a Ninja 400. I kind of call this position semi-relaxed. When I swing a leg over this machine, it's very comfortable, very nice to ride. You can see there's hardly a bend in my back. My feet are pretty low down here in the pegs, and this is a very comfortable riding position you can spend all day long on. Whereas on the R7, I kind of call it semi-committed, where it's more similar to a super sport stance. You swing a leg over this machine, you can feel that the seat height is taller, you can feel that the bars are a little bit lower, a little further away from you, this bike's a little bit longer, and the peg's a little bit taller as well. Compared to traditional 600cc Super Sport, both of them are way more comfortable. These are definitely sport-oriented street bikes, not track bikes that you're riding around on the street. Now, in terms of features, the ZX4RR is actually packed chock full of them. You have a full color TFT, rider modes, quick shifter up and down, even a lap timer function. This thing is pretty trick with all of its different features. You have ride-by-wire throttle as well. You have a fully adjustable rear shock, but preload only at the front, which is a little bit of a bummer when you're considering on taking this bike out to the track. The R7 is equipped with much lower spec components, let's say. You don't don't have a TFT display. You just have the traditional little LCD display that comes with the R7/MT07 platform, the inverted LCD over here. You do have fully adjustable suspension up at the front. This bike's geometry and chassis has been tweaked from the MT07 too. Fully adjustable shock out back as well. And I would say the R7 is a little bit more track ready out of the box, but for a beginner rider who doesn't really have, you know, any substantial track experience, both machines are going to provide a lot of smiles for miles. Both of these bikes you can take on track as is and have a ton of fun. The only thing I would recommend is if you get the ZX4RR, the GPR 300 tires that it comes with factory are really not the best thing, whereas the Yamaha R7 comes spec'd with the S22s from the factory, which is pretty sweet. So we've seen that both of these bikes are street-oriented sport bikes that are maybe track capable, but it's been a little while since I've ridden the R7. Let me go take this thing out for a spin and see if it still feels that good to me.
All right, folks, swinging a leg over the Yamaha R7. Let's see if I still think this is a pretty sweet little street sport bike. Let's go ahead and get it turned on. It comes on to life really nice, very typical Japanese way. The guy who we got this loan from for the day, big shout out to Mike, has an M4 exhaust on it. Sounds really crisp, really nice. Let's go take it for a spin. So leaving Yami Noob HQ with the R7, it feels much more like a real sport bike, so to speak. I think that the ZX4's seating position is very much like Ninja 400, whereas this is much more of a sort of real sport bike, if we can call it that. Yeah, I can feel that I'm way higher up in my seat than the ZX4. It feels like a proper super sport, to be honest. Has really similar energy to like a built SV650, and I think I said that to about this bike whenever I took it on track for the first time about 2 years ago. I was like, man, this feels like a really well set up SV650, which is a great thing. You know, there's a reason why an SV650 is the gold standard of kind of like entry-level sport bikes that you can quote-unquote grow into. And that's where both of these bikes, the ZX4 and the R7, fill the gap, right? They are comfortable-ish sport bikes that beginners can truly grow into. Slipper clutch on this thing, if I remember correctly. Feels really good. But yeah, the R7 is very much a no-frills motorcycle. And I gotta say, you know, it's so hard because on the one hand, you can ride a ZX4 and say, yeah, like I love searching for the power on this thing. I love ringing it out to redline within legal speeds. But then I jump on the R7 and I'm like, man, I love the fact that I could be in 4th gear right now and I've got really nice usable torque, you know? I've got ample torque all through the rev range. This engine just works beautifully on the street. You have ample power, ample rev range, ample, you know, power band, so to speak, anywhere. Because like I mentioned in the shop, it's pretty much like a perfect dyno. It's X equals Y all the way out with the horsepower and then a flat torque curve. So it's perfect, you know? I will say, no doubt about it, the ergonomics are much more committed. Like I said, the seat's higher, the clip-ons are lower, the pegs are higher. This is almost like an R6. It's not as bad, but it is almost like an R6, which gives you a little bit more lean angle to play with on track, lets you get in the pocket, so to speak, a little bit more on this bike, and it just feels really good to ride. So I'm gonna keep riding around this R7. I'm gonna get it out in the twisties a little bit, talk you through that. It's got a bit of a wider rear tire, which is going to provide a little bit more grip. Not much, but a little bit more. Get it out on the highway, see if that 689cc engine works a little bit better for us on the highway, and we'll keep checking in. Doing some highway speeds on the R7, doing about 70 miles per hour here on this kind of wide back road. People kind of go highway speeds here anyways, but yeah, this bike has much more big bike feel than the ZX4RR does. You know, I feel like I'm on a proper bigger bike. The ZX4 has that kind of toy-like feel to it, despite weighing 414 pounds, because it just doesn't have the torque. I think the seating position of this thing and the torque of this thing and the overall kind of mature soundtrack that it has, you know, I mean, 5th gear, let me wind that out. That's nice, you know? I think this MT-07 engine sounds just awesome. This 270-degree parallel twin in a higher state of tune, revving out to over 10,000 RPM. It's super, super cool. It doesn't have the velvety smooth refinement of like an RS660, and I do think that this bike is really bleeding the edge of what a beginner bike could be. This is a pretty serious motorcycle. I think you'd have to definitely be a little bit older, a little bit more responsible, a little bit more experienced to ride this thing. I wouldn't feel comfortable putting a 20-year-old first-time rider, young male, on this machine. They might have the potential to get seriously hurt unless they are very mature. But you know, highway speeds, cruising here at speed, it feels substantial, feels good. I like it a lot, man. Like I remember riding the R7 in 21 and being like, dude, this is a really great motorcycle, and that experience has translated here into 2023 over 2 years later when I'm on one again. These are really fantastic bikes, and I don't think you can really go wrong with them. But let's hang it out in the twisties a little bit and see if I remember the handling as sweet as can be. All right, hanging the R7 out on the twistier bits, and already I love the front end feel on this bike. It's so good. I remember when I test rode this bike back in 2021, I was super excited that Yamaha had sorted out the front end feel on this thing and fixed the geometry, because I was so worried they were just going to do an MT-07 with fairings, but it feels really great. Hopefully we can get around this this truck with some lawn equipment in it, because this is quite sad for the video. So one of the things I like about the R7 as well in the twisties is this brake master cylinder feels amazing. I forgot about this on the R7. It's got a radial pull master cylinder provided by Brembo. Still pinching the same, well, I think the rotors are a little bit bigger, but the calipers are straight from the MT-07, I think, and it just feels really good. Gearbox is great, really precise, really Yamaha, you know, you can't go wrong. And yeah, the front end is very communicative. I remember I really enjoyed it on track, but I did find that without the Super Sport pull, you had to ride it a little differently, which isn't a bad thing. You just had to get used to the fact that you didn't have 16K RPM, because the cockpit makes you feel like you have 16K RPM. It feels like you got lots of revs, like it basically feels like an R6. It's a very cool, very grown-up rider experience on here. And like I said, I don't really recommend this to a super young guy, you know? You can get a lot of trouble with this bike, especially because it makes a lot of torque, you know? It makes more torque down low than an R6, like a lot more. And a beginner rider who isn't that good with the throttle might be a little concerned, you know? Might be a little scared of that. Man, this thing's fun. Charges up these twisties, no problem. That's a ton of fun. But yeah, let me show you what I mean though. Second gear, you can just pop little wheelies. So much easier than you can on a ZX4. You know, you're gonna be popping wheelies on a ZX4, maybe in first gear if you float the crap out of the clutch. But this thing, loads of fun. Let's get it back on the highway. Let's show a little bit more of that power. Let's talk a little bit more about the R7, and then let's go ahead, bring this thing back to the shop, and render a final verdict. All right, folks, let's find out about the 0 to 60 potential on this bike. I think online it's quoted at like 3.2 seconds or something like that. And that's going to be with a really good launch, and I'm going to get an okay launch over here, and so we'll see how this goes. Just going to tell my buddy here who's riding with me just to wait a moment. We're gonna see here back behind us, got some clear traffic. it's quick. No doubt about it, it's a quick bike. It's geared really well too. I think top speed on this is probably similar to the ZX4, to be honest. That kind of like, you know, 125, 135, somewhere around there miles per hour. But again, with that bigger engine, you get a lot more, man. And it's hard to make the case for the ZX4 when you're gonna pay less for this thing, brand new, and get an engine that's, what's that, 289 cc's larger. That's not nothing, you know, that's quite a bit more, and you do get double the torque pretty much across the range. So something to think about. Let's feel a little bit more of this power, and then let's talk about it. On the highway with the R7 is where you really notice the difference over the ZX4 because of the torque. I'm in 6th gear right now, going about 77 miles an hour. And all I gotta do is just roll on in 6th, and I immediately feel the difference between the ZX4 and the R7. You just roll into it, pile on speed. And that's because torque is the name of the game, man. It's accessible power at accessible RPMs. And if that's what you're looking for, if you're looking for a bike that just has really predictable, smooth power, then the R7 is going to be the right choice for you. But there is still something about the charm of the ZX4, isn't there? There's something a bit unique about it. So let me get back to the shop, let me pile together my thoughts, and let me tell you which one I would get.
All right, folks, wrapping the day up here with the ZX4 and the R7, and you guys want to know which one would I pick? Well, the analogy I would give is that if these two are ice cream flavors, this one is cookies and cream, and this one is chocolate chip cookie dough. What do I mean by that? I mean that this is a known quantity. Every single spoonful is going to be the exact same. You know what to expect, and it's going to be delicious every time. Whereas chocolate chip cookie dough, every bite might be a little different. It's a little unexpected, a little unique, a little, you know, off the wall, let's say. Maybe you put some sprinkles on top, some chocolate drizzle or whatever. Maybe I'm just hungry while I'm filming this, but I will say if I were to pick one, for me personally, I would pick the Yamaha R7. I think it handles a little bit more sharp. It's a little more narrow through the tank. I feel like a beginner rider could jump on this and really grow into it. We talk about that term a lot, but I do think that you have to be a responsible rider to get on this thing. I wouldn't recommend this for an 18-year-old kid. This has a lot of power, a lot of torque, and this is the type of motorcycle that I would really categorize as the kind of 25 up crowd, maybe a returning rider, that sort of thing. The gentleman that I borrowed this bike from today actually is that kind of rider. He's a little bit older, more returned rider, and that is a perfect fit for this bike. Whereas the ZX4 is the type of thing where I don't really know where this thing fits. We've been making a lot of videos about this bike, and it's pretty expensive for what it is, and it's just really kind of wonky and unique. And if you're thinking about a ZX4, you're just gonna go get a ZX4 because it's a very bespoke motorcycle for a very bespoke individual, and I do think a brand new motorcycle rider could jump on this and not be scared. The power delivery is super smooth, super easy to get along with, doesn't make much torque down low. You have to really try for this thing to get out of control, whereas the R7 can definitely get out of control if you're not careful. And as a personal opinion, I just think the R7 looks amazing. R-bike styling, look at this thing's front end, the paint job. It's just a really cool bike, and as you guys know, the channel name is Yami Noob, so I do like Yamahas, unfortunately. So that would be my pick for today, but if you picked a ZX4, let me know in the comments down below why you chose this bike. Maybe you thought about an R7 instead. Have you ridden both of them? Let me know down below. I'd love to keep the conversation going. Remember, we do have that special promo going on for the R6. Make sure you check out yaminoob.co. Get your maximum entries as a new member for the all giveaway subscription. Thanks so much for watching and checking out today's video. I truly do appreciate it. Big shout out again to Mike for letting me borrow this bike for today. It was a ton of fun. We'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. I got a bone to pick with you. You're out there doing all them dang wheelers on your H2s and your Groms and your Hayabusas and all that. That ain't gonna get you nowhere. You gotta take action. You gotta get yourself fixed up. You gotta find Rossi. You gotta find God. Click this video right here over on Yami Noob. You keep watching yourself these videos. You're gonna get fixed. You're gonna get saved. You're gonna get fixed today.